Hi everyone, this is Paige. I'm currently an MLIS student, and today I'm going to be showing you some features on the My Books section on Goodreads. I'm going to be using the desktop version because the mobile version just doesn't have nearly as many features as the desktop one, and it just isn't very good. Sorry, Goodreads. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is how to add more bookshelves. As you can see, there's this little button right here that says Add Shelf, and a little text box will pop up where you can type in what you want your shelf to be called. I read a lot of comics, so I'm going to create a comic book shelf. After you name your shelf, you can just press Add and the page will refresh and it should show up on the side. You can add bookshelves for genres of books or favorite books or basically anything you want. This is a pretty standard feature, but later on there are actually some cool things that you can do with these. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is how to add exclusive shelves, and exclusive shelves are basically the first ones that show up in the drop-down menu when you first go to add a book to your shelf. These are especially useful for adding a drop shelf for books that you started but didn't finish and don't want to add to your read list or leave them perpetually in your currently reading. So to add an exclusive shelf, we go back to our bookshelf and click Edit right beside Bookshelves. Then we're going to go down to the shelf that we want to be exclusive and click the exclusive box and then click I'm done. So now when we go back to the book we want to add, we can see dropped right in the top 3 shelves. Another thing we can do is add a featured shelf, and a featured shelf is a shelf that also appears on your profile. So on my profile, I currently have my favorite shelf as a featured shelf, and you can only have one of these at a time. So to add a featured shelf, we go back to the edit button beside bookshelves, and then move down to the shelf that we want to feature. I'm going to change mine to classics, so I'll click that, press done, and then go back to my profile, and now my featured shelf is classics. If you want to add a lot of books to a specific shelf or delete a lot of books but don't want to spend the time to edit them all individually, you can use the batch edit feature. This is fairly straightforward. So I've opened the batch edit feature up at the top here, and I'm going to add some books to the comic shelf I made earlier. So now when I go to my comic shelf, we can see the books that I've just added. If you want to change what kind of book information is displayed, you can do that in the settings. So as we can see, there are a ton of display options, and I don't want to see my ratings, so I will unclick rating, and now it has disappeared. So you can also change how your books are sorted. So I'm going to sort by date read, and now we save our changes and the page will refresh with the new settings. The last thing I'm going to talk about is a really interesting feature where you can export your bookshelves into an Excel spreadsheet. So we'll click the import and export link under the tools on the left hand side, and as we can see here, I have a file I exported earlier. It just takes a bit of time to load, so I'm going to be using my previous file, but to export you just press the export library button, and after a few seconds the link to your export will pop up like this one here. So in this file here are all of the books along with the information that Goodreads collects. So depending on what you want, you can really do almost anything with this information. You can make tables and charts for years published, or add your own column for the gender or sexuality of the authors you're reading and put that into a chart if you were interested in diversifying your reading. So there's obviously a ton more features available in the My Books section of Goodreads, but I hope I've outlined some features that you guys will find useful. My advice would be to just play around with some of the features and see what else Goodreads has to offer.